Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hire and Fire podcast brought to you by Pirate Consulting. We're back again today with Jeremy, myself, and Chad talking about everything having to do with whether or not you are an overnight success, which basically dives deep into what it takes to build anything, a career, a company, whatever. So enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome back. Hire and Fire podcast, episode number 2. Jeremy Miller here, founder and CEO of Pirate Consulting with Chad Sande, our senior account executive, and we're back today talking about whether or not you are an overnight success. So Chad's story, he describes from the bottom, starts when?
Well, that's sort of the funny thing about it is I thought I was at the bottom and it was just like a ledge. So when I got diagnosed with cancer and right after the 4th of July in 2014, I was at a pretty bitter place mentally with my job at the time.
Okay, but let's be honest. What is that?
A pretty bitter place?
Yeah, like why are you bitter? Why are you hating it? Just give the group the basic overview.
So the Cliff Notes version is that I had messed up at work, got spanked, and felt like I had worked my way out of it, that my action spoke for itself, but the results, things weren't coming back to me, so I felt like the punishment was didn't fit the crime.
Fair enough.
And so here we are, middle of 2014. I'm having the best year of my career. I go to a 4th of July parade. I go to bed that night. It's a weekend. I got a side ache out of the blue, kind of a hitch in your giddy up in your
in the rib area?
In the ribs,
okay,
where normally you can breathe through it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go away. Next morning,
so you take a deep breath, and like 3/4 in, you're hunched over.
And
okay.
And normally it's just a cramp in your rib cartilage.
And you didn't run into a brick wall the day before for you to be able to think to yourself, I know how this happened.
Had never felt it before, and next morning it was still there. I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't sleep, so I went into urgent care. And the very long story short is diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, mantle cell lymphoma. It's a kind of blood disease. So here I am, July 2014, bitter as hell in my job, feeling I had worked my way back, but I wasn't. I was watching other people get opportunity and get promotions, even though they hadn't reached the levels of achievement,
like a certain
and
threshold
productivity that they should have been at.
And then in addition, you were that guy before.
Yes.
Pre-spanking.
Yep. So now I'm trying to deal with my bitterness, but every time a person would get promoted that wasn't where they really are supposed to be, but get promoted and I'd get passed up, it just added to my bitterness.
Totally.
Made it worse and worse and worse. So I get cancer. Now I go out on leave. So you'd think now that would have been an olive branch. The owner of the company said, look, I know what you're in for, because he used to be a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I want you home because it's the pneumonia that's going to kill you, not the cancer. So you need to stay.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm going to lock your spread where you're at. We're going to pay you every Friday. I want you to get better. So 6 months of chemo, 3 months stem cell transplant, bone marrow transplant. And along the way, an owner that took care of me. Now, you'd think the bitterness would start to go away, but while I was out, I made a couple placements.
Oh.
And while I was out in the fall, because remember this was in July, I'm in a hospital bed. Every other chemo session was 4 days in.
Oh, really?
Inpatient.
Inpatient, okay.
So I remember one day I'm on Facebook and I see there's another dude from my company, but in a different office, different state, got diagnosed with the same wacky cancer.
Really?
Almost the same age. And there's a picture in Facebook of a whole bunch of signature people that went to visit him in the hospital.
Oh,
and I'm thinking, I'm in Rochester, 1 hour away from the cities, and I ain't getting that, right?
Interesting.
And some of the executive leadership outside of Minnesota, a couple in particular, I did not get, who were like my buddy,
Yeah.
who acted like my buddy. I didn't get a text. I didn't get an email. I didn't get a phone call. So now I already got this picture of this other dude and everyone at his hospital bed and he's got the mask on.
Dude,
he's bald.
already bitter, already sick, already out.
Yep, and so I'm bitter to start with. And then I see this and now I'm like, what the fuck? And then
For sure.
And then I came just a hair under 520 in spread, despite missing half the year. I literally did not work.
So you almost hit your sales contest
without
even working half the year.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I knew from a year prior or 2 years prior, I had seen the precedents where a salesperson in our office came up short, and they found the loophole or whatever the term was for
They were gifted.
A special, where he was granted President's Club.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, surely I'm just like 30, 40 grand underneath the threshold.
Yeah.
And I didn't even work.
We're talking 7%. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally didn't work half the year. Sure, I would have easily surpassed 520.
Sure.
And so, if we're being honest here, so come about January-ish after the year ended, I was kind of expecting a special invitation. And I never got it. Now, I'm already bitter. So now the bitterness is like crazy.
Yeah.
March, I go into remission. April, I'm cleared to go back to work. I come back to work, welcomed with open arms, and I'm thinking I'm going to go right back to where I was, which was already at a really good spot, but having to kind of work I thought by now I've paid my dues.
Yeah.
And
5 years in.
5 years in,
Yeah.
had screwed up several years earlier, but then worked my way back and let my production speak for itself. Went through cancer, had my best year despite missing half a year, average spread wise.
Sure.
And all of a sudden I'm not, I'm having to start all over. And at a happy hour one night, the managing director, who was one of the original 4, of which I was one, says to me, "No, we're glad to have you back, but you're gonna have to just suck it up and start all over." Essentially, I had to get back to 10K in weekly spread to then get the leadership opportunities, which is the norm. You're gonna have to start from zero, hit your numbers, be in the green, get to 10K, and the doors will open right back up for you. And by now, it's the spring of 2015, and I've been there, 6 years or whatever. And I'm thinking it took me 6 years to get here. Now I got to start all over and spend another year or two getting back. And so for me, that was the point at which it was, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So then, it wasn't July. Then I thought I was rock bottom. And I left, thinking I've hit bottom. Now it's time to start climbing back out.
I had my day.
Yep.
I get cancer.
Yep.
I made a mistake.
Yep.
We all do.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it was a mistake that you would own.
Yeah.
And then you're climbing out of it.
Yep.
At least you think you want to, but you end up leaving the company.
Yep. So now, there's been a couple moments where I thought I had hit bottom, but it was just a ledge, and I rolled down a little further.
Okay.
And so when I left Signature in the summer of 2015, I thought, okay, I'm starting now. I've hit bottom. It's time to climb back out. But as you mentioned earlier, there was several mistakes made along the way and some more job bouncing that occurred where I realized I'm not quite at the bottom yet.
So you left in the summer or whatever, and then you went to another company. And what was the job bouncing experience? Like, how many companies did you like? How long did it last? Like the synopsis, of course.
Yeah. So let me think. So there would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 before I ended up here.
4 of
So
them.
between the summer of 2015 and the spring of 2019, when I started here, almost 4 years exactly. There was 4 companies in between, and my leaving those companies was for a number of different reasons.
Of course,
mutually agree to part ways. This isn't what you said it was going to be. Be honest.
The absolute classic. I don't care what you do for a living. We've all experienced it, where you've had job bouncing, job jumping, negative experiences despite your best intentions.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the last one was there was such a volatile person there. I left.
You just couldn't get along.
I was having a life is too short moment. A lot of what happens to me now. I go back to the cancer, is that, by last spring or last fall, I would have just turned 50. Late fall, early winter. And, turning 50, whenever you turn a new round age, you get a little sentimental and look back.
Yeah.
So now I'm 50 years old. I've been through cancer. I'm dealing with this very volatile, cancerous person in the office.
The pun.
Yeah. And so I just left and said, I'm just going to do my own deal, start my own deal. And was making a go of it. But as we've talked about in the past, when you called me that day when I was on the beach, in spring break, and I'm down in Florida, I was contemplating my future. Okay, I'm sure I can make a go of this. Just grinding it out.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. It was a grind. I had made a handful of perm placements. I had made some money. But I was looking forward going, is this what I want to do? Because I think I can make the money, make a go of it. But this is like a real grind.
But that's the moral of the story as to why I chose this topic. I mean, really, that sums it up. Because I don't care how long you've been in your career or how short of a tenure you've had, right? You're 23, you've been out of college a year, you're 53, and you've experienced maybe a few different types of careers. Maybe you had a really good run with one company and failed a few. My circumstance is similar yet completely different, especially without a cancer story. But I had no freaking clue what I wanted to do for a living. I get a girl pregnant in high school. We decide to keep the baby. The baby's born 3 days before I graduate high school. Mm-hmm. So I immediately know, holy shit, I have a ridiculously tough road to a hoe in general, and I'm financially on the hook 8-fold compared to every other person that I know. So I immediately go to school trying to figure out a way to get a career under my belt. I think IT is a place I want to study. I liked it. This is early 2000s. I think computer programming might be interesting to me. I'd done a little bit of it in high school. So on a whim, I go get an associate's degree in this stuff. But halfway through the degree, and I'm paying for it myself, no money from mom and dad, I realize this sucks for me personally. Like, if you want to be good in the development side of IT, you have to love puzzles. Mm-hmm. Now, I like fixing shit, and I was really good at my job, but I knew that this development part of my career was not going to be a good fit. So I take an associate's degree in computer programming, and I go into the infrastructure side of IT. So I'm like help desk desktop support guy. Mm-hmm. And it's the quintessential, we've all experienced it. This is a job. Like, I'm pretty good at it, but this is my job, not my career. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm 21, 22, I'm married now. I have my second daughter on the way. So I'm about to have 2 kids at the age of 22. And I don't like this. But I don't have the luxury of either A, moving back in with mom and dad, or B, not making any money. Ever since I was 16 years old, I've worked 40 hours a week, even through high school. So now I'm thinking, all right, I got to try something else. And starting a new career sucks ass, obviously. But I have a little bit of a sales bent to me. My father-in-law, my dad, sales, let's give it a shot. I sold copiers for a little while. That was not a great experience. So here I am, 23, 24 years old, trying to figure out a way to provide enough money for the family. But I have two different already failed career paths, two of them, and I'm 24 years old. I have IT, with that, which I have a degree in, which I don't like. I have sales, which I'm just okay at, but I don't like that either. So I'm trying to figure out a way to meld the two together. So I have a little bit of sales, a little bit of IT. I'd worked with a couple of IT recruiters before. I didn't really know the industry, of course. And then I'll skip the BS, but I ended up landing in the industry in 2006. So I went on a unbelievable run. It was a fantastic 11 years with my old company. I experienced it all. I was a quick study. So at the very, very beginning, I was really solid. And then I plateaued and got lazy.
Yep.
And thought that I could take my natural talent and crush it with minimal work ethic, which was a terrible plan. I plateaued for a year or two. I got called out by an old colleague of mine and then ended up rising to the challenge and did very, very well. Gained notoriety, made a lot of money, was on the leadership team, gave speeches, was known nationally in my organization, blah, 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 blah. But I, too, took the turn to negative town. So for me, I was the story of like super successful. I think I know it all, and I'm too good for your bullshit little processes and stuff. Let me do it my own way. And I still believe in that a little bit. It's why I own my own company. But I also, at the same time, made classic mistakes of being too into myself, too selfish, too judgmental, too opinionated, etc., etc. And after an 11-year run and 1,000 different stories in between, I got shit canned. So here I am at the age of, what the heck was I? 35, 36 maybe. I'm sitting here with a big house, kids in private school, nice cars, etc., etc. And I need to figure out what the heck I'm gonna do next. So I thought I had made it. I really did. Like, if you would have asked me 4 or 5 years ago, like, what I'm going to do or what I'm going to be, I would have told you I would have stayed with that company until I retired. So I had no vision to be able to understand how that might crumble. My ledge story is actually being let go because I thought that was me starting to hit the bottom. And now, for the last 2 to 3 years, it's been one effing story after another of realizing that I too am rolling down the hill, getting battered and bruised with boulders rolling over me, beating me to the bottom of the hill while I'm trying to grow. Brand new company, go through a divorce, have another kid, of course pre-divorce, but nonetheless, they're right around the same time. So the moral of the story in both of these is when you think you've made it, normally life has a way of slapping you back down. And the reason why I wanted to come up with this topic was because I'm a little jaded right now. Because I have had a bunch of people in a really good way, 100% positive, they mean the best, they're reaching out to me, trying to compliment me. But they're saying, look at what you're doing with Pyra Consulting. You're doing it. You're on your own. Everybody wants to own their own thing. Look, it must be so sweet, etc., etc. But they have no concept over what it takes to build a lifelong career,
or what it took to get there,
or even get halfway there.
I'm thinking the statement I'm thinking of right now is sometimes when people are complimenting you about whatever. In this case, where you're at with your business and whatnot. There's been times where I've thought to myself, when someone's giving me a compliment, I'll think, oh, if you only knew, if you only knew what it took. And then it gets back to the whole topic of, are you an overnight success? On the one hand, easy to look at where you're at and go, wow, life is good, man. You're in your 30s. You own a growing IT staffing company. Same with me. Right now I'm at a stage in my life. My kids are older. Life is smooth right now. Life is good. Things are good. But when I talk
depending upon your vantage point is your point, right?
And so when I'll talk to friends that I haven't seen in a while, and they're like, "Oh man," it's almost like they have this must be nice thing going on, and I'll think, dude, if you only knew, right? There's what it took to get to the place I'm at right now today. And even when I thought I was at the place I am today, but really I wasn't, and then I fell another notch, and then another notch. There is no such thing as overnight success. And at any given time, over the last, 20 years for me, at any given snippet of time, it doesn't feel like a lot's happening. And then you look...
In the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you look back and you go, wow, I've gotten a lot done, or I've come a long way. The example I had wanted to give is, my dad's a bricklayer. He's a retired bricklayer, a mason. And there's a lot of things he built, but maybe for you or for listeners who are from the Twin Cities area, the Wells Fargo Tower in downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So one of my dad's last projects that he worked on before he retired was the cobblestone sidewalk outside of the Wells Fargo Tower.
Okay.
In downtown Minneapolis. So the sidewalk where we all walk. He helped lay that.
Literally.
Yeah, before he retired. And so, it's the whole bricklayer mentality that at the time you're doing it, right?
One brick at a time.
One brick at a time. Nothing's happening. Even as days go by, there's not a whole lot of progress, and all of a sudden when your work is done, you look back and there's this whole big sidewalk surrounding this ginormous building that you did.
Holy shit.
But in the moment,
it's just a brick.
Just a brick, and you got nothing to show for it. It doesn't even look, it's just a little patch of bricks you've laid, that you've put down to make the cobblestone sidewalk. So even then, there's really nothing. But over a few weeks, you look back and wow, it's this beautiful thing that millions of people use in downtown Minneapolis on a monthly, yearly basis.
I look back at the early part of my career in a similar way. If you would have asked me in 2001 how I felt about being a $12 an hour peon PC tech in downtown Minneapolis, I probably would not have spoken very highly of it. However, I needed that job. If I wouldn't have gotten my first breakout opportunity, driving 50 minutes into the city in order to make $12 an hour and paying for parking on top of it, that would not have been the brick that would have been laid for me to get the next job. To be able to I ended up moving from that role into a help desk support role for a pretty sizable organization. And even if you would have called me and asked me in the middle of that job how I felt about what I was doing, I would have told you I hate working the second shift, dealing with customers that have no knowledge of IT related stuff that I'm having to walk them through problems is not super enjoyable. Mm-hmm. I'm not making any money still. My wife and I are living in this apartment and she becomes the caretaker kind of haphazardly.
Yeah.
Cleaning the lobbies and the bathrooms and vacuuming the floors. And we had 2 kids by then. We might even have had 3.
Yeah.
So I was grateful for it. But if you would have asked me in that moment how I feel about the fact that I'm a married father of 3 with a stay-at-home wife who's cleaning in an apartment and I'm making $14 an hour, I probably would have told you life sucks. But all of that kind of piggybacked on each other in order for me to kind of lay the bricks, love your analogy, to be able to get to the next level. Same thing about running this company here. There's no way I could be doing this right now if it wasn't for the run that I had with my old company. And I would have bitched in the middle of all of that, saying, They're not paying me to be a manager. I'm getting paid to be an IT recruiter and place people. And yes, it's salary, but that's negligible. It was a ton of commission.
Yep.
And I'm running these meetings and interviews and leading teams and traveling, giving training and all of these things that some people might enjoy. But I'm in the back of my mind kind of whining about it, thinking this is stupid. I'm not getting paid to do this. But if I wouldn't have been either asked to do it or volunteered to do it or followed through on doing it, I wouldn't have the skill set to be able to do what I'm doing now. And I think that is the factor that anybody, almost anybody, especially in their 20s, fails to realize. Because there's a due pain component that just sucks and is true. Mm-hmm. And there's kind of no way around it. You can find the 1 out of 1,000 that landed this sweet ass job and you're super jealous of them. Maybe they're a buddy, maybe they're a family member or whatever. But 999 out of 1,000 of us are having to pay our dues way up the ladder. Here's the catch though. We forget about it in the moment. Going back to your comment, in any given moment, it's really tough to look back and appreciate it. And I'm trying to do better at that, to be able to appreciate some of the shit that I've had to go through. Having kids young, getting fired, struggling to build a career, having no money, even stupid things like getting into credit card debt. Mm-hmm. There was a moment where I had $10,000 in credit card debt that might as well have been $1 million.
Yeah.
I didn't have an extra $100, let alone figure out a way to dig out a 10 grand.
It's funny because I was just thinking of sort of the flip side of this whole there's no overnight success. You got to pay your dues. And some of the things that challenged me about that, and maybe the second piece I'm going to bring up might challenge people nowadays, not me now, given the age I'm at, but
yeah, you old guy.
You worked in your previous company long enough. You probably saw this a million times, where a new person comes on board, pops a deal right away.
Oh yeah.
The whole office thinks they're the next big thing. Again, there's no overnight success.
And you should be celebrated. But they might go on a 3-month cold streak for all we know.
For sure. And I can still remember the looks on some of the more junior people. When the right out of the chute guy or gal pops a few deals, and everyone's celebrating, and you can tell the people who are a
little bitter about it.
A little bitter.
Yeah.
And they haven't learned yet that there's no overnight success, that, okay, that person's hot streak was right out of the chute, but they'll still, success takes time. The other thing is, on that same vein that I was getting at, where this doesn't really affect me as much given my age and how long I've been around, is social media.
Oh, dude.
Social media will fool people into thinking there's overnight successesses
everywhere.
And every time
everyone's happy on social media.
Yeah, and every time I see some fancy schmancy post about something or whatever, I think, I wonder how many takes it took to get that right.
Or you see the perfect family picture, like right now it's in the middle of fall, right? So like this is the perfect go to the pumpkin patch. So you see the kids picking out the pumpkins or whatever. And those moments are awesome, right? So we should catalog it. You want to celebrate it. But you don't see the other 9 out of 10 times where mom and dad were arguing, kid got yelled at for knocking over the pumpkin, kids begging for more popcorn, and dad loses his mind.
I got a little story.
All right.
On exactly that. So last weekend, I took my mother up the North Shore to Gooseberry Falls in Duluth, north of Duluth. The sun was out. Oh, no, it would have been 2 weeks ago. No, a week and a half ago.
If you're not from Minnesota, this is the best part of the state. 3 hours north of the Twin Cities, gorgeous, right on the lake, beautiful scenery, et cetera, et cetera. Continue.
Yeah. So my mom, she gets around a little bit slower now. So we were walking very slow. It was a beautiful Sunday, late morning. The
fall weather, a little warm.
No, it was a little crisp.
Oh, okay, all right.
But we were at Gooseberry Falls. The falls are just really humming, really pouring. A lot of water this year. The leaves were perfect. The maples were orange and red. The smell just smelled like fall with the leaves and the pine needles. And because my mom shuffles along, we're walking slow. And me, I'm at a good state. I'm in a good place mentally. I'm not in a rush. It's like, Ma, it's cool, Ma. And I'm just shuffling along slowly with her. But because we were going so slow, I was really locked into just observing other people. And sure enough, in this beautiful scenic environment, picture perfect fall day in Minnesota, I see this family coming. 2 little girls, probably about age 2 and 4. They were walking. Dad, Mom, arguing like a mother effer, right? But the 2 little girls and the mom in matching red sweaters.
Okay.
They were obviously going to take that picturesque picture.
Oh, sure.
For the Christmas card.
It's for the Christmas card.
And
it's for Instagram, whatever.
And this is the first weekend of October.
Right.
And so I couldn't help but think of this whole social media
thing.
Shut
the F up, Susie. We got to get the good picture.
Yes. How there's a group of people in Minnesota or wherever that are going to get this family's Christmas card, either online or in a postcard form. And it's going to be this beautiful picture on this beautiful day because I lived it. I was there. And I saw the behind the scenes of what was going on that day, and it was crazy funny with the 2 little girls kind of whining. The dad was arguing with the mom. And I thought, someone's going to post that picture, and there's going to be another group, some other mom or dad out there that sees that picture and thinks that family just has it perfect.
Well, not only that, but if you okay, I'll word it this way. If you're having a shitty day, maybe you're having a shitty month, a shitty quarter, a shitty year. Like, I'm struggling right now with my marital situation, with my kids. Like right now, I'm in a valley, right? So when you're in a valley, everything in a lot of ways can start stacking up on top of each other.
Yeah, it's cold down there.
It's cold down there. So you can have a random person look at that picture. Now, they get to decide, obviously. Like, you get to choose whether or not you're going to look at anything in life and view the positive and view the negative. And we should probably go down glass half full, glass half empty road because you and I are great at that.
Yeah.
But that mom, that dad, that whatever can look at that picturesque picture, and that could send them in a tailspin of negativity, of look at where I am with my marriage or my kids or my career or my finances or whatever. Or it could equally be a motivator to the degree that maybe they are already in a tailspin and they see this family that looks happy, and maybe, just maybe, it's a motivator to be able to try and find more happiness. And I historically 100% have been the guy that would look at that more negative. And I don't like that about myself. It's just true. My dad would call himself a realist. Most people would call that pessimism. I understand that there is a difference between realism and pessimism, but at the same time, the difference is subtle. And the difference is that you get to choose. Right? It's the same basic logic of driving through any middle-class neighborhood in middle America or anywhere in America. You drive through the neighborhood, whether it's your own or somebody else's, and you're seeing either really nice or fairly nice homes, Audis, nice Chevys, who cares what the cars are. But everything from the outward appearance looks really friggin' rosy. But you don't know. You just don't know what's going on behind that garage door. The same thing happens with anybody that you're working with. Think about all the different interactions that you and I have with each other, with our other teammates here internally at Pyra, our clients. I don't know if calling my client right now and getting him live on the phone is just after he had a sweet goodbye kiss from the wife in the morning, or after they just got into a massive argument. Right. And we're all really, really good at trying to put that front up. Sometimes that's respectable, and you can almost appreciate the fact that someone's gritting through a shitty day in order to try and make it better. And then other times I almost want to try and convince that person just to own the fact that it sucks today. Because in the same vein of our topic, the overnight success, of course, we're in the staffing business, so it's not like, we're relating to people's careers. But anybody who's listening regarding careers of their own, they hire people, they're in HR, or they're just run-of-the-mill people doing their own career, and they might interface with a staffing company like ours. We're all in the middle of this weird human condition. And we're all trying to figure out how to fight through the bad times and maybe sort of kind of appreciate the good times. So I love that story about you being able to experience both. Did you ever turn to negative town about the fact that your mom was just kind of inching along, or did you hold positivity the whole time?
Nope. That day I was pretty positive. It's hard to really walk slow. Let me tell you.
Yeah. When you're used to going fast?
Yeah. But no, I was in a good place that day. I tend to stay in positive town. I'm a much more philosophical guy now when it comes to things like that. So I tend to look at people, look at pictures, look at posts on social media. Old people is a really good one. I tend to think, what's that person's story? I wonder what the real deal is. Whereas before, seeing someone in a really nice car, a young kid, nice car, I think back to myself, of putting on the show, and then I tend, again, getting back to there's no overnight success. I forgot where I was going with that.
That's cool. You're allowed.
Yeah.
There's but I like where you're going with kind of regards to the judgment of other people.
Sure.
Because that's essentially what you're trying to hit on, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you see the 25 or who cares year-old driving the really nice car. Is your first thought that guy has it all figured out, or is your first thought that he lives in a flea-infested apartment and he puts all of his money into his car?
Honestly, now I bet you he can afford that car. But I'll bet you he'd be smarter if he had half the payment and invested the rest. That's how I think, to be honest with you, because that was me putting on the show.
Yeah.
The first year I made 6 figures. I was in my 20s, went and bought a Lincoln Navigator. $700 payment, still in the 90s.
How did that go?
That did not end well. And I'm just
It was a good ride, quote unquote, along.
Let's just say that story does not end well, and so I'm perfectly comfortable driving my truck right now.
So like, what do you do with your kids, which are what, late teens, early 20s, all 4 of them?
Yep.
What do you do? Have you been successfully able to impart that wisdom on them?
I believe so. So we live in a community where there's a lot of money. But my kids heard no a lot. But yet, I think now that they're older, they realize, where at the time when they were hearing no, I think they thought they just had it so rough. But now, as they're older and they kind of now are looking at things from a higher level, they're seeing that even their struggle was pretty good. They were in a pretty good spot, and I think they are now seeing, and this gets back to the overnight success. They are seeing some of their friends who had it all nice and good, and maybe daddy was overly involved on this board or that board or the coach. But now when some of their friends are on their, standing alone, they're seeing them struggle where my kids have had to, quote, struggle. Not really. But, they didn't get all the nicest things. They had to work. They had to, all my boys worked in high school.
Sure.
And here we're living in a community, a lot of kids don't work. Certainly a lot of moms don't work. And so I think my boys have learned that success comes with a lot of hard work, and they've seen that it's on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. Maybe it's not always visible, but then you look back and here you are.
I had a few circumstances like that too, just before high school, moving here from Pittsburgh to the Minneapolis area. we lived in what I would categorize as like a lower middle class neighborhood. So growing up, my mom stayed home. My dad really never made it in his career until about your age, right around late 40s, early 50s, which obviously is a massive chunk of parenting time if you kind of have the quintessential get married in your early to mid 20s and have kids, and that's what they did. So, I was raised on going out was kind of McDonald's. Getting pop would have been a huge deal. It was Kool-Aid, it was homemade brownies, it was cookies that my mom made, and she was actually pretty darn good at it. So, but I never had the experience of understanding what it was like to go out to eat all the time or to have a bunch of stuff. So we moved to Minnesota just before high school, and it was like the flippin' Twilight Zone. My dad gets this big promotion. I'm 14, 15 years old, and we moved from this really humble 3-bedroom home that my dad grew up in. So my dad ended up buying the home from my grandparents that he grew up in. And I wasn't poor. We never went without. But, if I wanted the fancy soccer shoes and soccer was my sport, I was kind of laughed at, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know where the work ethic for me got instilled probably when I started helping my brother with the paper route. He had the 2-street paper route, so we ended up splitting it at some point, probably when I was around 10. So 4 or 5 in the morning, whatever time it was, we'd have to get up, and then those SOBs at the paper company would not insert the paper. So you could picture opening the paper and you got the ads in the middle.
Sure.
The flippin' paper boys are the ones that had to do that. So we would get massive stacks of the papers and massive stacks of the inserts, cut them open, a little twine thing, and then we'd have to spend 20 minutes inserting them. Yep. Then we could go deliver. And then even later, I had to do my own collection for the papers, walking around ringing doorbells.
Getting the money.
You got to get the money. I mean, the internet's not even close at this point. This is probably, early 90s or whatever. And I guess that's kind of where it got instilled. Yeah. And my parents never volunteered to buy me a car. I bought my own car. I saved $2,500 from the age of 14 to 16 and bought my older brother's car. Mm-hmm. And I just worked, period. And my kids, frankly, have experienced a completely different life, an utterly completely different life. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, I experienced a sliver of that moving into this kind of rich town in high school. Yeah. It was weird in my old town in Pittsburgh for high schoolers to even have cars. The town I move into here in the western suburbs of the Twin Cities, not only does everybody have cars, but they have Beamers. And I'm just dumbfounded. I had friends that I would go over to their house and their parents had just checking accounts with, $1,200-$1,500 in it that was just available to them. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that was just so foreign. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine it. Now, so I actually have struggled leading, for lack of a better word, my teenagers in this regard because they're just not used to it.
Right.
They're not, they've gone to private schools. I was a public school kid. That was important to me for them to go to Catholic schools. I was sending them to Catholic schools, not private schools. I was very deliberate about that. I wasn't hoity-toity about it. Our faith was important to us and is important to us.
Yeah. I think my kids...
But how you get them to that level, especially if they never experienced it, right? So thankfully, to a certain extent, it was a rough road for you so that your kids never experience the everything is rosy type life.
Yeah. Dave Chappelle talks about it, one of his recent specials, that he actually grew up in an upper middle class, I think mostly white neighborhood. And he knows now that they had it pretty good compared to his friends in the projects. But at the time, when he thought he grew up broke. He thought he grew up poor because he was poor
compared to
where in his neighborhood.
Yes.
And he says, but of course now he knows he was nowhere near as poor as like his friends who lived in the projects.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways, that's how my boys are. As they're getting older, they're going to look back and go, wow, we really had it nice growing up in that community we grew up in. But at the time, Dad was working hard, and Mom was a stay-at-home mom for a lot of it. And we had neighbors and friends and coaches who were like CEOs of 3M, right? So even though we're in this nicer neighborhood, I think they grew up feeling like we were the struggling ones.
Which is funny because in real estate, they say that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to buy, I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, you're supposed to buy the shittiest house in the nicest neighborhood.
Yeah.
And most people fall prey to the opposite. They want to buy the nicest house well, not necessarily in the shitty neighborhood, but at least they want to have the nicest house in the neighborhood. Yeah. And the basic idea being is that if you buy the crappy one, the other homes around it will pull it up in value.
Sure. Yeah.
Where if you have the nice home in a modest neighborhood, not that it's bad, but it will pull the value down just from a comp perspective, the way real estate agents tick. And the problem really is the perspective. You just don't know. So I'm struggling. Well, my divorce is like rippling just shenanigans through my whole family. So that's not helping. But at the same time, my kid, so like I have 6 children and I have 3 teenagers, even though my oldest is 20, but let's just go with a clump of 3 at the top and a clump of 3 at the bottom. So my oldest daughter was the first girl to teenage parents, epically broke, terrible parents, were making bad decisions. Just because I'm 22 and I'm a dad doesn't mean I'm smart. I'm 22 and I'm going out drinking like the rest of the 22-year-olds are, right? My second daughter and my third daughter in a lot of ways had to experience that as well. But they rode the wave of my progression of my career. So sucked, and eventually it took off, and then they experienced this wild ride towards the end.
Yeah.
My younger 3 have never not known affluence. Now, I'm not a very wealthy person, but they've always lived in a very nice house and gone to very nice schools, and their parents drive nice cars, and they've never had to worry about, not being able to play hockey because we can't afford it.
Right.
Or whatever. And you just don't know what you don't know, right? So I'm thankful in a sense that it's weird when you look back and you start to appreciate all the shit that's happened to you, because in the middle of it, you hated it. But now you can look back with perspective, being able to say, like, now I appreciate it and it's made me a better person. But what the last few years has taught me, now that I'm in my late 30s, is that even after you feel like you've kind of made it, and you alluded to this earlier, especially with the cancer story and the job failing story, etc., you almost have to presume that that's going to continue.
Yep.
That cycle of loss and growth and loss and growth, and like how you kind of handle the process in between. So like even the job seekers that we're helping all the time, we're listening to their present view of their situation. I'm making X thousands of dollars a year. I'm senior, blah, blah, blah. And now I used to be driving a shit Honda Civic, but now I drive a sweet ass Volvo, and I have the nice house, but now I have kids. So we got to ratchet this thing up a little bit.
Yeah.
Great. We're there to help them with that. But at the same time, you're hoping that they can bring a level of humility to their role, understanding what it helped them get there. And then I'm trying to do something similar with leading people here in the company about, everybody who's here has only been here a fairly short amount of time, but they all have been around the block a little bit. So they kind of have some positive, some negative experiences. And hopefully we all collectively, you as an individual, them as an individual, me as an individual, but all of us as individuals and as a group can kind of learn from that and hopefully have a higher level of stick-to-itiveness about how to survive, how to thrive.
So in 5 years, we can be an overnight success.
In 5 years, we can be an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny, but that's the moral of the story.
Yeah,
you're hoping to be a 5 to 10 year in the making
Overnight
success.
Yep.
So the classic joke is like every generation talks shit on the next one, right? Like that's just the way it goes. And then the next generation, quote unquote, is talking shit on the former generation because they think they're all awesome, but you have your opinion as to what they've done.
Yeah.
So we're just hoping that we can, realistically, if we're looking for human progress, we're hoping that we can impart on the next generation some of the shit we had to go through.
Right.
But I have no idea what it's like to have gone through wars, what it's like to have gone. I can't appreciate what my grandparents went through in the Depression.
No.
I just laugh that when they die with $1 million in cash, half of it shoved in their mattresses. And all of the children were utterly shocked.
Yeah.
That, dad passes away at 92, and all of a sudden they realize they had all this money.
Yeah.
Whenever they, being the grandparents, the generation before the baby boomers, in a lot of ways what's referred to as the greatest generation, was so scarred from the Depression that they hoarded.
Yeah.
Not necessarily shit, but sometimes money.
We might have the opposite problem in society too.
Well, explain.
I think
I know where you're going.
I think we live in an immediate gratification society now. So I don't know if there's a lot of people hoarding their money right now.
I agree. That's my biggest concern for my 20-year-old daughter. She has a really good work ethic. I hope that I helped instill that. I won't take credit for it because I don't know. But she's mid-college as a junior and went away to college for a couple of years, but I paid for the first year and grandparents paid for the second year. She has a newer car, not a new car, but a new car to her, paid for by her grandparents.
Yeah. And
now she's living in a, not an upscale, but a above average apartment in a nice town. And is that the right call? I mean, my first couple apartments were shit. They sucked. I mean, they were not pretty.
Yeah,
and we just wanted to survive.
Yeah.
I bought my furniture from used furniture stores, and I'm not proud of it, but I am proud of it in regards to I've been on government insurance. I've had WIC. Mm-hmm. I know what it feels like to be in line at the grocery store, handing the person behind the counter boxes of tricks and juice and whatever is allowed on the WIC program. And you got to give them they give you these gigantic vouchers. It doesn't look like a check. It's damn near the size of Happy Gilmore getting a check.
Right, yeah.
And you're handing it to them, and you might as well scream from the rooftops I'm poor.
Yeah.
But I needed that, so the government helped me at that time.
Yeah.
Now my goal was to get the hell off of that program. Mm-hmm. And I get it that we can debate all day about people sitting on that program and et cetera, but that was a motivator to me to prove what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah. On your path to overnight success?
On my path of 10 to 15 years of overnight success.
Yeah,
correct.
Go figure.
Correct. So, I mean, there really is I don't know if there's a solution to this, but I love the discussion just because we all can experience and have experienced something. One of my old colleagues at my old company would legitimately say that he grew up with a silver spoon in his ass. Mm-hmm. His dad was an executive at multiple companies, and as a retired guy is still on the board, still getting a lot of money annually based on stock or board payments or whatever the heck that works out like. However, he took that as a driver, and he's killing it, trying to earn the way back, essentially back to what his dad made.
Yeah.
Now, I'm no Freud, I'm not a doctor, but obviously there's something that lit a fire under his ass that says, I want to accomplish something comparable to what my dad did. Mm-hmm. So why did he get that gene, yet there are all the stories of celebrities' kids or rich executive kid that is 100% addicted to meth and didn't catch it. And I don't understand what that is. Maybe is it a law of averages? Is it DNA? Is it environment? I have no idea. But, part of that scares me in the sense that I have 6 children.
Yep.
So statistically speaking, I may or probably will have 1 or 2 that are going to mightily struggle, whatever you want to call that, emotionally, financially, etc. So am I blessed because of the fact that I have multiple children and a few of them will do well? Or am I cursed, for lack of a better word, which is aggressive, and I don't mean it that aggressive, that because I have multiple children, there's a high likelihood that some of them won't do well? And then what is the definition of do well? Is it money? I don't know.
I think it's happiness. But happiness is defined, different people define it in different ways. Yeah, you got 6 kids. Life, that's what's going to happen to those 6 kids.
For sure. Well,
I have 4 kids. Life is going to happen. Don't know what that is. Life happened to me. Life happens to you.
Yeah, cancer, divorce, struggles, teenage pregnancies, failed careers.
Yeah.
We got all kinds of crap.
Mm-hmm.
You would like to think that it made us better people. So hopefully, as I'm processing, anybody listening that's processing would be able to say to themselves, whatever's going on right now, it's equally, in my opinion, and I would love to hear if you disagree with this, it's equally really, really shitty. And if you look at it from one perspective, there's a lot of stuff going wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things you're disappointed with. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of things going very, very well. And then when you look back, you're going to be polarized on it. You're going to look back and say that was either negative or positive. But go into your glass. Well, if you have something to say about that, great. But I also wanted to cover the glass half empty, glass half full thing because I love your perspective there.
Well, my feeling is, so first of all, I'm a cliche guy. My kids always make fun of me because I speak in cliches all the time. But I do believe a lot of time, cliches are true for a reason. Science says that chicken noodle soup doesn't cure the cold. I say, well, it might not scientifically cure it, but it certainly helps it.
Yeah.
The steam and the whatever. And
even somebody taking care of you if they made it for you.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, glass half full, glass half empty. If I'm talking philosophically, does it really matter? A cliche of, this too shall pass is something I live by. Is one thing I know that history's taught us and my life has taught me, and same I would hope you too, is that whether things are going really well or things are going really shitty, it's not going to last. So,
no matter what.
So hopefully, if things are going really well, understanding that it's not going to last, there's going to be a moment. Hopefully that will give a person a little humility or perspective. And on the flip side, when things are going really shitty, whatever it is, knowing that this too shall pass. It's not going to last forever. Hopefully that will give you inspiration to keep fighting or whatnot. But getting back to the whole glass half full, glass half empty, and obviously since we talked about it, the cancer story for me would be the most glaring, is that when I'm a generally happy-go-lucky, kind of schmoozy, get along with people, friendly guy. And when I got cancer, I would get people constantly, as we'd go to like a football game or whatever, saying, gosh, you just have such a great attitude. And my attitude was, no, I'm just being Chad. The only difference is, so I felt like they were taking it like I had a great attitude, but I think I was just being me. It was the same. But I had cancer. So then it's perceived as having a better attitude than normal.
Yeah.
But I don't think I had a better attitude than normal. I just think I just kept going because in my mind I thought, well, I have cancer. I can be shitty, gloomy Chad who could die, or I could just go on and be Chad, the schmoozy, fun, life is good, happy-go-lucky kind of dude. Mm-hmm. Either way, I got cancer. So my reality was the same, but how I went about my business and my day and just being, that was a choice. Does that kind of get to what you were talking about, the glass half full, glass half empty?
I get it. I think the choice component is what
I used to say back then, look, life is a series of problems interrupted by an occasional crisis. So this is my crisis. And people would chuckle.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things you say.
So my crisis at the time was cancer. But if you're always waiting for shit to be perfect or great,
it'll never be.
Never. So then you'll always be frustrated because it's always something.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. What's funny is I would say that about kids. Everybody has said to me for years, like, I've always had more kids than everyone because I had kids first. I had multiple kids, so it was always just more than everybody else. And the quintessential like time, money, etc. And that was my go-to as well. Like, if you're waiting for the right time to have kids, you'll never have them. You'll just never have them. And the one advice I was given there that was one of my favorites, and I already had multiple kids, so it wasn't even applicable to me, was my old boss saying, how did he word it? He goes, I've never met a couple that has regretted having that extra child. But I've met a lot of couples that have regretted not having the extra child, mm-hmm. which kind of struck me because it's very easy to look at things, whether it's kids or your career or finances or politics or the weather or who gives a shit. Maybe it's your damn sports team that lost, mm-hmm. and be able to say, this sucks. I'm a huge Steelers fan. I'm from Pittsburgh. They won a game the other day, which is awesome. But I have a few different ways to look at that. For the last 15 years, I've seen 2 Super Bowl victories and 5 Stanley Cups. That is unbelievably amazing compared to anybody in Minnesota that hasn't seen a title since 1991. And yes, that's 27 years, 28 years. It's a long-ass time. So my brothers will text me and say, damn it, our defensive lineman is Stephon Tuitt's out for the year. What the hell else could go wrong? And I, weirdly, super atypically, my first thought is, good. Let's just embrace we got a down year. Let's just embrace it. I don't want them to lose. I'm kind of secretively hoping they lose so that we get better draft picks, which is a stupid story. But nonetheless, no matter what it is, we get to decide. And I am 38 years old, and I don't think I even had that awareness until the last year of shit. When I've separated, about to be divorced, struggles in my finances, personal life, etc. It has taken that shitstorm to be able to kind of help me awaken from the negativity train, which is total full circle from where we started. Mm-hmm. Now, you didn't need cancer for that to do it for you. You're you. If I said, the Jeremy, if I'm being me, it would be negative. Because historically, that's been me. But I've had enough shit go wrong to the degree that eventually when stuff goes wrong, you eventually have to wake up and say, I'm either going to be overtaken by the terribleness, or I'm going to start getting used to the fact that sometimes in life things just go wrong, and I'm going to control what I can control and do the best with it I can. And that's it. That's all we can do. It's ridiculous, but true.
Yep.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
That wraps it up. Appreciate you listening. Episode number 2. More to come next week on Hire and Fire with Pyra Consulting. Have a great night. You just got done listening to Hire and Fire, a production by Pyra Consulting. Please check us out online on either LinkedIn, Facebook, or our website at pyraconsulting.com. That's PIRA consulting.com.